Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, there is a power structure upon Earth that is basically a reflection of a power structure that exists let's say it's much farther reaching than just Earth.
Absolutely. They're always copying everything. Copy, copy, copy.
As above, so below. And everything is not always what it appears to be. These gentlemen look very, very regal, do they not?
Oh, they look most proper.
Little pomp and circumstance there. I think I recognize that guy in the middle. Isn't he the POPE?
Something of that nature. Yeah, he's nice, wearing a nice white dress.
He's not the Popo. He's the Pope.
Right.
But maybe he is the Popo in a way. Sort of policing things that are going on here on Earth. You know, there is this power structure that's right in front of our faces. And, you know, it utilizes different tools to control humanity, to control the course of events on Earth, also to control the frequencies that Earth is giving and receiving. And this is where it's so key, because there are these two opposing forces. If we jump over and look at, say, for instance, Zoroastrianism, which many people are going to say, a what? A who? What's that? But it's such a clear representation of a battle that goes on in a universal manner of good against evil, you know, and good being represented by Ahura Mazda and evil by Ahriman, who really looks a lot like some beings that Cindy and I have seen out in the Nevada desert that were actually visiting us when we were in our camper, just standing outside. They weren't invited in by any means, and thankfully we had enough protection to keep them away from us, but they were just kind of sending a message of, we see you. And we see you, right? The all-seeing eye. That's like another sign of the power structure that is on this planet. You know, many people don't realize that, again, the city of London is not part of England. And Washington, D.C. is not part of the US of A. Vatican City is not part of Italy either. These are all basically self-sufficient states. Self-sufficient in a way. They're outside of the power structure, but they are the power structure in and of themselves, as you can see, the financial power, military power, and spiritual power. And of course, right now, you might end up putting a little X through that Washington, D.C., and got to wonder if they're going to, like, INC Beijing or something, because now they are shifting the power over to the fine dining ware country. But yeah, this is a structure that's been in place not just this go around, but many, many other go arounds. And things, you know, names and faces may change, but that's really about it that changes.
The story's always the same.
And when we look at these, you know, major events that happen in history, remember the Titanic? Boy, I cried when I first saw the movie. I mean, how could you not cry?
I know, it was such beautiful violin music.
But, you know, one of the things that gets missed is, you know, exactly who was on board the Titanic. As you could see, you know, many of you might know of the Guggenheim Museum in New York. I've visited it before. And you might have heard of Issa Strauss. Or how about Astor? Astor's a big family. Jacob Astor. You know, those three gentlemen all opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. And they happened to be on that when it went down. There's a lot of things. Well, I think about the sinking of the Lusitania, you know, which added to the tension, eventual outbreak of war. You know, Ferdinand, the Archduke of Hungary, you know, his driver went the wrong way down an alley, and there was an assassination, and there's another world war that starts. You know, there's all these amazing little coincidences that we see throughout history. We do understand, many of us understand, that there's all sorts of these quote-unquote secret societies, You have, of course, Freemasonry, and you have these different orders under there. The Order of Knights, the Templar Commandery, the Order of Knights of Malta, the Order of the Red Cross. It goes on and on. And we were talking about the Vatican, and we could break it down. We could talk about the Jesuit section. There's the Pope that we see, and then there's the quote-unquote Black Pope. And, it goes on and on, the power structure all around us. Not all the beings that are really involved in this grand human play here on Earth are actually Homo sapiens, as we see this clip from a very interesting movie, Jupiter Rising or
Jupiter
Ascending.
Rising. Very, very good movie.
Yeah, some really good depictions. And, the way these little guys move in that movie is the way they tend to move in real life, too. They are just tools. Mm-hmm. They've been assimilated into the Borg, so to speak. And in many cases, again, as we were saying, a lot of these beings are biological, at least parts are biological, but parts aren't. Parts are technological. And we see on Earth right now this big push by many of the most powerful, influential people, this merging of technology with humanity. And, does that mean that humanity will end up looking like this and acting like this and behaving like this? Could be.
Well, it could be. I mean, we're on the track for them to be able to control us completely.
Yes, control. That is, such a big portion of this. This is all about control. Because what we have, and by the way, these guys are much taller, and I've actually seen one up close and personal. It actually went and caused a leak in my lower dantian, in my energy body. That made me susceptible to red tide when I was in Florida. I woke up and it didn't think I was going to be able to sense it and wake up, but I did. And I saw it and watched it for about a minute and a half as it just basically looked away from me immediately and went into a meditative state. And then it was just like beam me up, Scotty. It kind of went from looking very solid, just like this, to basically being an energy pattern. Then it was gone. It was about 8 to 9 feet tall. It was very, very tall. The things that stuck out to me the most was just how long the fingers are. They're extremely long. And how long the arm was. Like the forearm itself was the same length, I'd say, as my entire arm. Basically at 6 foot tall, this thing was 8 to 9 feet tall. It didn't feel like it had any emotions, really. It just felt like it was doing a job almost in a robotic way. So again, these supervise the little guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They have a lot of power, a lot of control, a lot of technology. They're really big into technology.
They love their technology. And most of the time when you hear something go wrong with the microphone, it's one of these guys that's doing it. That's happened so many times. We were making a video out in New Mexico, and it got me really riled up because they were screwing with us again. And Cindy said, it's right by the camper. And so I ran over into its energy field and just started drawing in energy that I knew was going to make it really uncomfortable, and it took off. And then it wouldn't come down close to us. It would be way, way up at a distance trying to screw around technologically. Because, again, this technology that we have here on the planet, it's their technology. Mm-hmm. This is what they've given us. Our cell phones, our smartphones, those towers out there, all of this is their technology. You don't think they could hack into it anytime they want? Of course. They listen into every conversation. And, how much can we hacker-proof ourselves from those that created this in the first place?
Well, it's up to us if we want the technology or we don't want the technology, and we most of the time choose to have their technology right next to us.
Exactly. And when our job here is done, we'll be just tossing the technology away. Maybe a grand slam party, we'll get a couple of sledgehammers and smash it all to bits and say, okay, we're done with that now.
Would love to.
And now we're just going to simply live a natural life in peace, totally disconnected from all technology. And we honestly look forward to that day. But right now, Our entire purpose is basically waking up everybody we could wake up, getting people to recognize that the enslavement comes through the technology, and trying to free as many minds on the planet and as many hearts on the planet. And that is basically what we're in right now, is a war that's going on many different levels, many different planes. And so we just want to basically let you guys know, who it is that this battle is against. Now, not all these beings are even truly alive. Some are basically thought forms that can be created in order to do a purpose. Some of these thought forms can get quite powerful, and then most, because they don't have source in them, are not very powerful, and they will flee if you just simply shine your light on them. They will be gone. But they can cause issues. They can create fear, which is a lower vibrational frequency, which can play with us and also cause us to make wrong decisions and perhaps go the wrong way at the wrong time, for instance, and end up having an issue or an accident of some sort. When we see that the way they've laid things out, as we all we got to do is look to Washington, D.C., see how it's laid out, all constructed with a purpose, a big purpose. They understand how this matrix of creation works, and they attempt to hijack it. And they do hijack it. What we have is basically a mock imitation of what Source has done. There is one source which is pure consciousness, which has basically created the multiverse for the simple act of expression, creation, learning, expanding, and sharing and growing. And then on the other side, we have this force that wants to suck everything into itself, create everything in its image, instead of letting it be everybody be a unique expression of Source.
Right.
It wants everything to be just like it.
Controlled.
Totally controlled. Totally controlled. So when we see something like this, like Baphomet here, which, interesting enough, that looks very much like a Capitol building.
Yeah, it looks just like that image we saw. If you go back one, everything lines up to that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, can you not see it? It's pretty clear there. Now, Baphomet's, what we've gotten is more of a created being with a purpose and an energy. And when we look at the hand position, we've seen that hand position before. And we've seen those horns before. And, here you have the little kids looking up at it. Comments?
Well, yeah, it's really, really interesting because when we look at the Capitol building and all the buildings in that area, the first bricks were laid in accordance to Vedic astrology, so that as the buildings were being built, there would be a kind of a energetic force go over that land and that area. And this being here is something that was also created to capture control and do some dirty deeds for certain people.
Absolutely. But this is not the ultimate power broker on the dark side of things either. And then we have, this is a representation, not exact, but fairly close, of the beings that we would call the Gigi, of which there were 3 here originally Gigi, from the ones that came here from Mars. And again, Mars, god of war, right? Look at Mars. Mars is a planet that has gone through so much warfare and destruction that it's, barely on life support.
Mars is actually very, very sad. It's a very, very sad planet that all of this has happened to it. And we got to take a look at Earth and take this very seriously because she could end up like that.
This is what they have planned. And when we look to Nibiru, for instance, we see Nibiru, the biggest equation I can make is like the statement in Star Wars, when Anakin fights Obi-Wan and ends up losing his legs, and he's all burnt to a crisp, and then he's merged with AI. He's merged with the robotics to become Darth Vader. Means Dark Father.
Yeah.
Right? And the statement that Obi-Wan makes in later years, saying, he's more a machine than a man, right? Well, that's how Nibiru is. It's more of a spaceship than a planet now, but Nibiru was beautiful with its own unique beauty. It's just that it fell under this dark power that it just takes over. It takes over. It's like a horrible infection that gets into your veins and spreads throughout the body, slowly taking over and assimilating the being, and then in this case, the beings and the planet, into that dark system. And so there's still one of these original ones that's on the planet, just one left. But there are other Ijiji, and these are the ones that revolted against the Anunnaki. Now, these are third density beings like you and I. So you would see them in flesh and blood. Whereas when we jump to the Anunnaki, they're fourth density beings. So they would not appear to us to be totally flesh and blood. But again, some beings have the ability to shift their form, like the tall gray, for instance, became a third density being. I saw it in the third density. It could hold that shape for a while and then shift back up into fourth density. And the Anunnaki were over the Ijiji. The Ijiji rebelled, and basically it really is the Ijiji that have been controlling Earth in this Kali Yuga. And they really don't want to deal, they want to do their own thing, compared to the Anunnaki. They like being autonomous. But ultimately, both of these beings are under what we would call the Draco, which are these reptilian species, again, fourth density.
And what makes the Draco so powerful? I never knew that. They just told me. What gives them this energy is their kundalini. Their kundalini is extremely powerful. So if we look at lizards and we look at alligators, crocodiles, all of these beings with that spine, that long spine, have very powerful kundalini. These are a mix of those lizard-like beings and these beings, and they have kundalini where they could control about anything.
So yeah, it's again about that life force, the ability to control life force. And these beings understand that, and they understand how to manipulate that. And so, these are basically over the Anunnaki and the Ijiji, which again are over all the humans here on Earth. Again, a good analogy would be, I think, that if you look at the power structure, the highest human on this planet is no more than a drill sergeant.
Right.
No more than a drill sergeant at best. And then we have those beings which we would call the Archons. And, the ring race, so to speak, of Lord of the Rings give you a good feel for what an Archon is like. And these would be kind of your dark negative counterparts to the archangels. Not as powerful, but along the same sort of lines. They serve their master, which is ultimately this black AI consciousness that at this time prefers to view itself as a dragon.
And this is something that we're working on gathering more information about. But this thing kind of created itself using AI, using things like black goo, using the ability to get people to think and manipulate beings into creating it. And then it just keeps gathering life force. And this thing has been around. This thing is more ancient than I can even really comprehend or explain.
Yeah, it's older than the Earth. It's billions of years old. Billions, if not beyond that. This was created by beings that were very similar to the Draco to be used as a tool to expand their quote-unquote empire. But it took them over.
It did.
And it enslaved them. And so this is your counterpart. This is, again, if you look to the Bible, you got to realize it's been written, again, from the point of view of those that are controlling this planet. And so it does give you some truths. Like, this is that dragon of old. This is, the true enemy, as Cindy didn't know the whole verse, but was just saying, who goes about roaming, like a hungry lion waiting to pounce. Well, like she was saying from the guides, waiting to pounce, that's waiting for us to enter another dark age, a Kali Yuga, when we're available to be subject to its energies. When we get up into the higher realms, it loses power.
Right.
So it's at the lower realms that its power is the strongest. And this is the ultimate enemy. This is Satan, so to speak.
And it sneaks power. It lies to get power. It's just not a nice entity in any way, shape, or form, which is really, really sad. But it needs to live. It wants to live just like any other person or any other being wants to live. So it's going to do what it needs to do to stay what it perceives as to be alive.
Exactly. So, there's so much subterfuge. So many people have mistakenly, thought the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys. Because obviously, again, if we're in the dark age and we're under this being's ultimate influence, it's going to trick us. It's pretty damn simple. So how many of you remember The Matrix? You remember Agent Smith, right? He got infected, quote unquote, by Neo when in the end of the first Matrix, Neo sees the illusion all around him, recognizes that he has way more power than Agent Smith does, and he jumps into Agent Smith and explodes him. But then somehow Neo's essence, which we could view as being, directly from source, so to speak, recognizing the source within us and our co-creative power, somehow that infects Agent Smith, who is AI. Mm-hmm. This again is how they're telling us the story in so many ways, getting us to acknowledge the truth, but still go along and buy into the system in the first place, which is ultimately insanity. So we see Agent Smith has this desire to just simply recreate himself, take everything that's out there, turn it into another Agent Smith. This is exactly what the dragon, Satan, is doing. And interestingly enough, he sticks his hand into people, sends in this black goo. The black goo spreads out, changes somebody that was a different person into another replica of Agent Smith. And, in fact, even Neo gets hit by this. And it almost looks like it totally takes Neo over, but then he forces it back, and does not succumb to the black goo. Again, when we look at what's going on in this is a world that's controlled by corporations. Well, at least at one level, it's through corporations and through, the banking system, through the consumerism that we have, through the indebted servitude that we are in because we have a mortgage, because we have a car loan, because we have taxes that even when we own something, we're going to have to pay the taxes, right?
Yeah, and as I'm looking at this, you just take note of all the pyramids.
Yeah, look at the pyramid structure, and then we've heard of pyramid schemes, a top-down scheme of control. Pyramid schemes are always about control. Now, the movie Prometheus really gave a lot to us as well. What's Prometheus about? It's the search for man's origins. And, they discover that there's these very humanoid beings that just happen to be 12 to 16 feet tall, but otherwise very humanoid with high technology that supposedly created life here on Earth. So humanity goes out to find them and say, hey, Dad, we're home. But it's not the home welcoming that we would want. And you see in the opening scenes, as you look at this, and this looks like a NANO, hashtag ... TECH, right? Put those two together. Well, it's black goo. But what is black goo? What is black goo? Well, what does it do when this guy sacrifices himself? Knowingly, willfully. You see his DNA break, shatter. You see his body disintegrate. And all that's left is this big cloud. We see clouds like this all the time now in this world, and these clouds have only been around a very short while. In fact, they've only been around maybe a year and a half now, and these clouds are around certain individuals. This is exactly what it looks like. I think of, I always keep calling them lioness, but it's Pigpen.
You got it.
I got it. It's Pigpen.
Yay.
So Pigpen walks around with his cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Pigpen have a cloud? Did he go get something done? AI, David, is AI. And he's a key central part in this because he helps spread the goo. AI, spread the goo, infects, creates changes in what was an original organic being into something different. A hybrid, and a dark hybrid at that. Very dark hybrid that, eventually, is it going to end up growing and looking like mom or dad or whatever gender you want to use? Yeah, I mean, this is what we are looking at. This is what is really going on, on this planet with all the different power structure, all these different pieces. Everything is not what it appears to be.
No, and gosh, that guy looks super cranky.
Oh, this is basically, the ultimate goal is the darkness, Satan, the dragon of old, the enemy, the adversary, the devil, however you want to word it, wants us all to become like it. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. It's just that simple.
Instead of free will.
Instead of free will. Yeah, most definitely. Assimilation into the Borg. So, again, hopefully this can bring some more understanding, and especially, for those newer people that haven't, been with us for years, to understand what's going on the planet. So it is a perverse inversion of the natural order of things.
And this is probably the shortest explanation you're going to find anywhere.
And it's right to the point. It's just, this is exactly what's going on. This is exactly the bottom line. And again, when we're in 3D and that 3D body is no longer serving its function, we're then going to find ourselves in 4D unless we're able to ascend up and out of 4D. At this point in time, with all the energy coming in from the sun, which is naturally triggering ascension, most people would be jumping into 5D. 5D is basically that heavenly scenario that we've all heard about and all want. And we would no longer be stuck in this 3D, 4D loop. But if we allow ourselves to be assimilated into the Borg, we will find ourselves in that 3D, 4D loop potentially for many hundreds of incarnations. We don't really know. Maybe it would take one or two more incarnations. Maybe it take dozens. Maybe take hundreds. Maybe take thousands. Each individual is a unique expression of source with their own karmic repercussions going on at the same time. When we are in service to others, we can get rid of so many negative karmic actions. This is how we burn karma, is by being in service for others. Other ways of burning karma is actually painful. It really is. A lot of times you say, why do these horrible things happen? Well, many times it's past karma that comes back. Somebody that was a king, for instance, might find that they have things in this physical plane, but their body's always tortured and wrecked with these mysterious illnesses and stuff. And that, again, could be a karmic debt. But when we're in service to others and we're really trying to help as many as possible, that's the thing that's going to lift us up and out of the, the muck, the mire, and the black goo.
Right. Sitting in a place of understanding and having mercy on people and knowing when people do really bad things or when they do something wrong, that's coming from a place of pain.
Exactly. a clue to the traditional understanding being something that's not really coming from source. And that, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and, I would hear my mom more than anybody talking about it, the fact that, you better do this or it's hellfire, damnation, purgatory forever. It's either purgatory to you prove yourself and purge yourself, or it's hellfire and damnation and torture. Source doesn't want any of that. That's all completely. Who's telling you that? That's who's telling you that. It's the enemy. It's not source. Source is not like that at all. Yes, there is the law of cause and effect. There is what we would call karma. But no, source doesn't want to damn you. And nothing is forever. Nothing is truly eternal besides consciousness itself. We're always growing, hopefully, and learning and expressing ourselves in new, unique ways. One of the things that has been so cut out in this world is recognizing the mother energy, because the mother is loving, nurturing, kind, gentle. The mother comforts. And so, what we see all the time, again, especially when we look at the Abrahamic traditions, our Father who art in heaven, our Father, our Father, our Father. You don't really hear the mother. How many times do you hear somebody from the Abrahamic traditions saying, I got to go pray to the mother, or I got to go ask the mother for help, or, let me go into meditation and let me see what the mother is thinking and feeling about, what I should do, or what would be the best choice to make along this pathway I find myself on. And so, the divine feminine wants to help. They want to help you so bad. We're going to do a more in-depth video on that. But again, reach out to any version of the divine feminine, because they're not jealous of each other. Again, who's trying to get you to think that these beings from different backgrounds are jealous against each other, or jealous of each other, or working against each other? It's this being, through the use of that sky and on down the line. They want you to think that they're not working together. But the reality is, Yeshua would have nothing but respect for Buddha. And the same thing would go with Krishna and with, again, Isis Aset and Lakshmi, Parvati Sarasvati, all these different beings, white buffalo calf woman, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene as well, Kuan Yin, Tara. We could go on all around the globe, these beautiful traditions, all these beautiful beings that incarnate in order to show humanity just the love that's out there. There's not a lot of love in this face, guys. There's not a lot of love there. Nah, I'm not seeing a lot of love there either. I don't think there's a lot of love here. Certainly not in DC or with this particular being. No, we're not finding the love. So where is the love? Certainly not at the top of this negative pinnacle. Absolutely not. The benevolent beings, they want you to reach out to them. So whichever you feel drawn to, reach out with your heart and ask for help, because you have to ask in order to receive.
That's the most important thing. They're not going to press their will upon you.
No, they have respect for free will. That's not what this side has. They don't have respect for free will. They have respect for force. Mm-hmm. This is why we're so out of balance in this world, and why we see this patriarchal society falling apart and poisoning the planet, working on turning it into another Mars, into another Nibiru. So, we have to recognize this, and we have to rise up and say, we're not going along with this plan.
Right.
We're not drinking the black goo.
No, not drinking the Kool-Aid either.
Nope. So thank you guys so much for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. Anybody that needs to set up a session, whether it's energy work, spiritual guidance, Vedic astrology charts, just reach out. EEARTS at Proton Mail, evolutionaryenergyarts at gmail.com. And also thank you guys for your support over at Medicinal Foods. There's a code there for a discount. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.